Why it hasn't. I can't hear anything. Huh.
Max has got a meeting going on.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not talking in my meeting, so it's fine.
Okay.
Huh, it's 12:30, I think,
Yes, it is 12:30.
and there's only 8 people, 6 people.
Good Lord. Oh, that's online. Good for Bill.
Hmm?
I hope you're not on camera eating like that.
Do you know me?
What?
Do you even know me? Why would you think I would be on camera?
Because you have been before. That's why.
I've had a lot of meetings. Something screwy here.
I'm going to have y'all stand because I think we're going to be singing.
I thought it was 12:40 that it started.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Seattle, where we are working to build healthy communities.
Yeah, it's not, huh?
My name is Jan Levy, and I've got 2 months and a couple of weeks still as your president. If you will remain standing, I'd like to call up Trish Bostrom and Jevin Powell for some music.
The words to these songs apply today really well. Here we go. If I had a hammer, if I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning, I'd hammer out the love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. If I had a song, I'd sing it in the morning, I'd bring it in the evening, all over this land. It's a bell of justice. It's a bell of freedom. It's a song of love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land.
I'm just seeing those who are.
I've got a song, I'd sing it in the morning, I'd sing it in the evening, all over this land. It's a song of justice, it's a bell of freedom, it's a song about the love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. And now I've got saw hammer and I've got bell. I've got a song to sing all over this land. It's the hammer of justice. It's the bell of freedom. It's a song about the love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. It's a hammer of justice. It's a bell of freedom. It's a song about the love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. You were great.
Thank you, Jevin and Trish, for that wonderful music. I also want to thank Tracy Brown, Charlie Dickey, and Roy Wild for serving as our greeters today, and Logan Riley for our meeting reporting. We have a ton of visiting Rotarians and guests with us today. There is no way I can name all of you or we'd be here for the rest of the afternoon. But would you all stand so that we can welcome you, all visitors and guests of Rotary today, visiting Rotarians? I've been asked to remind you there are index cards on your tables. Nicole will be picking them up for your questions of our main speaker today. Before we get started, though, I want to share some news. In August of 2023, our club lost a beloved member, Don Kraft, who joined Seattle for in 1954. He was a member for 69 years, never missing a meeting. Last week, we received notice of the passing of Don's wife, Midge, on April 8th. With her passing, I'm very pleased to announce that our foundation, SRSF, will be receiving a very generous gift from the Kraft estate, estimated to be around $68,000. And I have more news. At our district conference in Walla Walla this past weekend, which is Jeff Borick here? There you are, was led beautifully by our district governor, Jeff. Seattle 4 won $1,000 for our foundation for having the second highest attendance at the conference. And in case anyone's wondering, Woodinville got the first. Today, we're continuing our focus on global citizenship as a cornerstone of the healthy community. Few organizations that I can think of embody global citizenship more than the Gates Foundation. You may have noticed that this year I've been trying to streamline our meetings by limiting speaker introductions, but that is not the case today. When I was still working, I was part of a chamber group called CDRT, which met weekly. At those meetings, the leader was someone who gave the most engaging introductions of speakers that I have ever heard. I remember at the time thinking, that guy takes speaker introductions to a high art. Well, when I realized that this artist wanted to introduce today's speaker, I was all in. Of course, it might help that he and our speaker are related. Please join me in welcoming our very own Paul Suzman to the podium to introduce his nephew, Mark.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. When my nephew Mark was born, I was 16 years old and attending boarding school in KwaZulu-Natal, the same age as his father was when I was born, and he was attending the same school. Mark became adroit at an early age, adapting to and thriving in unfamiliar environments. His father was a philosophy professor at the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. And while on a year-long sabbatical in the UK, he enrolled Mark and his brother James in a local school. Upon his return, Mark adjusted to student life at Michael House, traditionally a rival institution to the school his dad and I had both attended some 20 miles away. I surmised that behind this choice, my brother Jonathan had reflected on how he and I had turned out and concluded that an alternative school might result in better outcomes. After completing A-levels, it was to Harvard that Mark headed for his BA. To supplement his studies, Mark took on a janitorial position and became particularly adept at cleaning toilets on campus. After graduating summa cum laude, he returned to South Africa as a stringer for Time magazine, then worked on the Sunday Times and next as a reporter on the Johannesburg Evening Star. As their oldest grandchild, he was much beloved by my parents. He lived with them in their house in which I'd grown up. We conjectured that in a past life, Mark might have been an Aztec. He did as they regards the sun as sacred and its light a necessity. Fortunately, Johannesburg averages over 300 days of sunshine. In Cambridge, however, this presented a bit of a challenge, but he deduced which fellow students' rooms had the best southern exposure and would negotiate access for sun worship at different times of day. I understand that at the foundation, if you're looking for Mark, what you have to do on campus is follow the sun. As a reporter for the Financial Times, Mark covered the seminal South African elections, which resulted in Nelson Mandela's election as president. These were precarious times. Extremists at both ends of the political spectrum threatened bloodshed. Journalists were encouraged to wear bulletproof vests. His grandmother made sure he had the best available, sturdy enough to stop a bullet from an AK-47. Bright purple, weighing up to 25 pounds, emblazoned with the words press in large white letters. Covering outbreaks of violence leading up to the election, Mark had to choose. Forgo the bulky armor, allowing more agility, or encumber yourself and present a slower target. His presence here today suggests he made the right choice. There was little violence on election day. 87% of the population turned out in an unalloyed celebration of democracy. It was an extraordinary time. And even here in Seattle, at the municipal building, there was a joyous potluck at which mail-in ballots could be cast. Mark subsequently attended Balliol College in Oxford on his Rhodes Scholarship and earned his DPhil in the same year as our club hosted Nelson Mandela at Benaroya Hall. He then worked on the Financial Times in London on the property beat before being assigned to the Financial Times DC office, coincident with Bill Clinton's fall from grace. In 2000, he accepted a job at the UN to work under Secretary Kofi Annan, who had visited Seattle the year prior at the time of the infamous WTO battle in Seattle. 7 years later, Mark was recruited by the Gates Foundation. In 2020, he was named CEO. By May of that same year, the SARS coronavirus 2 had claimed 350,000 lives. The pandemic blossomed and was to disrupt the lives and livelihoods of every person on the planet. The foreign aid drought following our 2024 elections resulted in a further blow to global well-being. Thus have these last 6 years been anything but business as usual for the Gates Foundation, nor for any other organization dedicated to the betterment of global health. One of Mark's most esteemed and valued mentors has been the Oracle of Omaha, Mr. Warren Buffett. Independent sources advise me that he has earned from Mr. Buffett the highest of grades for his role as CEO. As his uncle, it's my prerogative to say how proud his family is of him. When not traveling for work or spending time with his wife, Catherine Switz, and their son, Ned, Mark can be found relaxing, albeit competitively, on various tennis courts. The Gates Foundation aims to create a world where every person has the opportunity to live a healthy and productive life, an aspiration very familiar to any Rotarian. And now please help me welcome to the podium my nephew, Mark.
Well, thank you, Paul, for that very generous introduction. And it's great to be with you all here today. I have to confess that when Paul first moved to Seattle back in the 70s, I had no clear idea where that was. We used to joke he'd moved as far away from family as you can get without leaving the planet. Little did I know that in 2007, I'd be joining him, doubling the Suzman population overnight. But the reason I'm standing here today, and the reason I moved halfway around the world, is because 2 Seattle Rotarians raised their son to believe that those with great resources have an equally great obligation to serve others. Mary Gates and her husband, Bill Sr., were both deeply involved in Rotary until their deaths in 1994 and 2020. And they passed along Rotary's core values to their children, including the importance of service above self. In other words, The same values that have shaped Rotary since the beginning also gave birth to the Gates Foundation. So it should come as no surprise that our two organizations have had such a long and productive partnership. Like the Gates family, Paul and I are also inheritors to an extraordinary legacy of service. My great aunt, Paul's aunt, Helen Suzman, served in South Africa's parliament for 36 years. For many of those years, she was literally the only voice in the all-white body opposing apartheid. As a white South African, the horrors of apartheid didn't limit my opportunities, but my family made sure I never looked away from them. Back then, the connection between injustice and indignity was not theoretical. You could see it in the schools, in hospitals, in who had choices and who did not. Living through that period made one thing very clear early on. Systems don't fail by accident. They are a reflection of a society's values, and when people are denied opportunity at scale, it's because someone decided, explicitly or implicitly, that their lives mattered less. 21 years ago, Nelson Mandela reminded us when he launched the Make Poverty History campaign. You might be familiar with his famous quote from that day. He said, "Like slavery and apartheid, poverty is not natural. It is man-made and can be overcome and eradicated by the actions of human beings." But what mattered just as much was what he said next. Quote, "Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it is an act of justice." That idea has shaped my life. It's what persuaded me to leave that sunshine in South Africa and join Paul in this rainy city in the Pacific Northwest. Needless to say, it was quite an adjustment, and it really is true that you can find me by chasing the sun through the Gates Foundation headquarters building. But I did it for a simple reason. I believe very deeply in the mission of the Gates Foundation that Paul described, that everyone, no matter who they are, where they were born, deserves the chance to live a healthy and productive life. It's a simple idea, but it's radical in its implications. It means refusing to accept a world where child survival depends on geography. And for a long time, it seemed like world leaders agreed. At the start of this century, countries came together around a shared ambition to dramatically reduce extreme poverty and prevent millions of people from dying of preventable causes. And something extraordinary happened. They succeeded. Child deaths declined by over 50%. Deaths from diseases like HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria also fell sharply. Families rose out of extreme poverty all over the world at rates faster than any other point in human history. That progress was not accidental. It was not inevitable. It was the result of deliberate choices, sustained political commitment, scientific innovation, and an insistence on measuring what worked and then scaling it for the people who needed it most. That's something Rotarians understand very well. In 1988, when Rotary led the way to create the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, wild polio still paralyzed 350,000 children every year. In 2025, that number was down to less than 60. More than 3 billion children have received polio vaccines, averting at least 1 million deaths and 20 million cases of paralysis. None of this would have been possible without Rotarians. And that is exactly why the Gates Foundation has proudly contributed nearly $10 billion to polio eradication efforts over the years. And it's why we are continuing our 2-for-1 giving match with Rotary, tripling the impact of every dollar you raise. Beyond funding, we've also been proud to lend our voice, technical expertise, and influence with governments and international organizations to support the causes Rotary has championed since long before we arrived. And I have no doubt that in the not very distant future, we will be able to celebrate the eradication of polio together. Now, it won't be easy. It's no coincidence the last two countries where polio remains endemic, Afghanistan and Pakistan, lie in a region often beset by war. After all, diseases thrive on poverty and conflict. And after 2 decades of progress, we've seen extreme poverty also rise again. We've seen climate disasters intensify, violent conflicts expand, and we've seen deadly diseases become deadlier. These crises are not going anywhere. Yet at this moment, when their support is more important than ever, many wealthy countries have slashed tens of billions of dollars from their global health and development budgets. The consequences have been swift and devastating. In sub-Saharan Africa, HIV clinics have shuttered, stockpiles of food and malaria nets have run dry, village teachers and healthcare workers have been laid off, leaving children out of school and without medical care. Sick people are rationing what little medicine they have left, and parents are often being forced to choose which of their children they can afford to feed. Early estimates suggest that in 2025, for the first time this century, preventable child deaths went up rather than down. It's hard to calculate the exact impact of aid cuts on that grim statistic, but the best projections suggest that US cuts alone have already led to the avoidable deaths of hundreds of thousands of children. And the irony is, the world has never had better tools for saving lives than we do right now. Better data, better science, and clearer evidence about what works. The problem is not a lack of opportunity, it's a lack of will. And at the Gates Foundation, we don't want to waste that opportunity. At a time when innovation is advancing faster than ever before, we have the chance to harness that progress to save and improve millions of lives. That's why last year, Bill gave us a new deadline. In the next 20 years, we will accelerate our work, spending roughly double what we have in the past 25 years. And then in 2045, we will close our doors for good. In our final chapter, we are focusing on 3 ambitious goals. We want to create a world where no mother or child dies of a preventable cause, that the next generation grows up free from deadly infectious diseases, and that literally hundreds of millions of people in the US and around the world can break free from poverty and help put more countries on the path to prosperity. Indeed, we believe the next 2 decades could and should see even more progress than the last 25 years, but only if the world confronts some hard truths. The first of these is that self-reliance, which is the goal of every country and community, requires resources. Across the global south, leaders have rightly said they want their countries to stand on their own without relying on others. That's what donors want too. Done right, foreign aid was never meant to be permanent. It's supposed to allow low and middle income countries to support their own people, strengthen their system, and grow their economies. That's exactly what happened in countries like South Africa and Indonesia and Brazil, many of which have gone from aid recipients to donors themselves. But that doesn't happen overnight. Today, many of the world's poorest countries are forced to spend more on debt payments than on vital programs like healthcare and education. The hard truth is, to escape that cycle, they need additional funding. There's some cause for hope here. The US Congress recently passed a spending bill that would restore many of the aid programs that were gutted last year, although there's still some debate whether the administration will implement it. It's up to organizations like ours to keep pushing the US and other governments to reverse their recent cuts so that the countries that still need aid in the short term can support themselves in the long term. The second reality we need to face is that aid needs to be much more focused. Even if traditional donor nations have restored or would restore some of the funding they've cut, there's simply no going back to the old global order. Nor should we. Today, what we call foreign aid covers everything from renewable energy projects in middle-income countries to refugee resettlement in rich countries. Those are worthy causes, of course, but there are plenty of ways to fund them beyond official aid. Aid efforts, whether they're coming from governments or organizations like Rotary and the Gates Foundation, should be focused on proven ways to help the world's poorest survive and thrive. In the past 26 years, we at the Foundation have learned the area we can make the greatest difference is global health. That's why we share Rotary's commitment to finally eradicating polio and curbing the deadliest modern infectious diseases like malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS. The third reality is that we must do more to empower local leaders and governments. I think back to that Mandela quote that overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, but an act of justice. Charity is generous, but it places the focus on the ones doing the giving. Justice requires a society where everyone has an equal chance to survive and thrive. To accomplish that, local leaders need to be the ones driving the change. Think about new technologies like AI, which is poised to transform every sector from agriculture to health to education. Making AI tools freely available to people in low-income countries would certainly be an act of charity. But what if those tools aren't built on data sets that reflect the local population? What if they aren't available in the local language or dialect? An AI tool that may work perfectly for a school or hospital in Seattle might not work in South Africa. It's not just that new innovations should be made available to the world's poorest people, it's they should be developed by and for the people in those countries themselves. There's real work to be done. But at the Gates Foundation, we still believe extraordinary progress can happen, and we are committed to doing our part to make it happen. We believe that philanthropy has the greatest impact when it acts as a catalyst, taking risks that others cannot or will not to unlock the progress our partners around the world can carry forward. Our role isn't just to fund good ideas, it's to help turn those ideas into solutions that change how systems work. And we learned those lessons in part from Rotary. Rotary's work is a reminder that every major leap in human progress has come from people who refuse to accept the world as they inherited it. The reversals we're seeing and the lives lost because of them didn't happen by accident. They're the direct result of choices made in some of the world's richest nations to deprioritize the world's poorest people. But the story doesn't end here. For children born today, the future is still unwritten. By the time the foundation closes its doors in 2045, I'm confident that where a child lives will no longer determine if they live or what opportunities they have. By the time that child reaches adulthood, they could live in a world where no mother dies giving birth, where they don't know anybody who has HIV, let alone anyone who's died of it, where they only read about diseases like polio and malaria in the history books instead of newspapers, and where new solutions from AI-powered teaching tools to climate-resilient crops help countries build lasting prosperity rather than perpetual dependence. As Mandela reminded us, as long as poverty, injustice, and gross inequality persist in our world, none of us can truly rest. That is as true today as it was when he said it, and what happens next depends entirely on what we choose to do now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have some questions. They have to be written down, so put your card. This is new for us. So we have 4 questions, and so I'm going to pool them all about local. So at the local level, that includes regional and state. Are there some projects or things that maybe people in this room would like to hear about that you have accomplished or are working on?
Yeah, so the local level, and actually I'm just back from a trip to Kenya with my executive leadership team, and there a huge part of our discussion was exactly as we're thinking about the long-term impact and the fact that we will close our doors in 2045, how do we make sure we're solving problems now, but actually building the local capacity that's able to sustain the work long after we're gone? So I was able to go and see, for example, a health research center in a town called Kilifi, called Kemri was the center, where we're helping support local African scientists engaging with local health issues and collecting big data sets, which we're using to provide search into issues that even affect people in wealthy countries like stillbirth or preeclampsia and pregnancy. And that was a great example to me of how you actually can both build local institutions that are going to outlast our original funding, but tackle real problems that are the problems we're trying to tackle today. And we'll do the same, here in King County with some of our work in education or related issues, or we would do it in agriculture, where we work with smallholder farmers across Africa and South Asia, where, again, we have local groups where we're helping sort of pool together local farmers, often in cooperatives or other groups, to see if they can help with the take-up of some of the newer drought and flood resilient crops and livestock that I was talking about. So lots and lots of those concrete examples, but admittedly, it's something we're taking a lot more seriously now as we think through the next 20 years, because we know that for change to be sustainable and scaled, it has to be driven by the countries and communities where it's happening. Money can buy you short-term outcomes. Long-term outcomes require that kind of deep capacity and resilience.
Wow, thank you. So there was quite a few, which you alluded to in your talk about the future after the Gates Foundation. So who will rise up? What is the future? And who do you hope, whether it's governments or individuals or other foundations? What do you see?
Well, we hope, we have a lot of hopes. I say we hope a chunk of the problems that we're working on won't need to be taken up by others, because, as I said, if no one is suffering from polio or malaria and those diseases have been eradicated, that is a problem solved. We don't need a new generation of either philanthropists or governments or private public sector to come together. But we absolutely also hope and believe that there is a critical role for philanthropy, that philanthropy is a bridge that can, has to operate where private capital and public capital either cannot or will not, where you have market failures. Public capital, it's often very difficult to take risks. We can take risks because we can fail. We're not only allowed to fail, that actually should be one of our jobs and roles, is to try. So, for example, we're busy investing hundreds of millions of dollars, literally, in the final trials of a new tuberculosis vaccine. Tuberculosis is a disease that you may not be aware is the infectious disease that still kills more people than any other around the world, over 1.6 million every year. And there hasn't been a new vaccine in over 100 years because big pharma companies are not incentivized to actually fund one, because people in rich countries don't get TB, and people in poor countries who get TB can't afford it. So we've done the funding for this. It's got a 50% chance of success or failure. We may end up having spent $700 million and find that it doesn't work. But if it does work, it's transformative. So those kind of examples, just as I say, is what we hope will actually inspire a new generation of philanthropists. What the world has no shortage of right now is very wealthy people, most of whom are getting wealthier. And we're hoping that our example and the example of other great philanthropists in the US and around the world will encourage more people to take those kind of risks and to tackle that next generation of challenges, but always look to be catalytic, that in the end, you're trying to enable and support the government or the private sector to help drive longer term progress.
All right, thank you. Can you speak to the perceptions overall of the Gates Foundation currently and philanthropy in general, and some intentions and goals around that?
Yes. So one of the things that has been most disheartening, maybe the wrong word, but challenging, especially during the last 5 years, 6 years during my tenure as CEO, is it won't have escaped you that we are often the subject of conspiracy theories. That there's concern that did Bill Gates want to microchip you with his COVID vaccine? Where those things come from, how they do, are causes of deep concern, not just in itself, but it actually makes our ability to do our job more challenging, because we truly have no agenda other than the one I described, to help build a world where every person has the chance to a healthy and productive life. And we're completely transparent about every single grant we make, every partnership we make. It's available on our website. We'll talk about it because we really have nothing to hide, and we are trying to build these partnerships. And so what we've been trying to do in this era of social media, and actually I can tell you the exact day that we shifted from having net positive social media about the Gates Foundation to net negative media about the Gates Foundation. And that was the day during the first Trump administration that President Trump first announced the US would withdraw from the World Health Organization. And Bill and Melinda, who Melinda was still our co-chair at that stage, put out a statement that withdrawing from the World Health Organization during a global pandemic was perhaps not the smartest idea. And that literally is the day that we had a network, and since that day, it hasn't shifted in social media. It's especially in the US. And so what we try and do is really have our work and our partners speak for themselves. That we're incredibly proud of what we do, like the polio work and partnerships we do with all of you. That in the end, those are the most important stakeholders, and that we try and are aware in today's world of social media, and you are always going to get some suspicion, and appropriate suspicion, of when you have great wealth or great concentrations of wealth. And we are the world's largest foundation. Our endowment is nearly $90 billion. It's appropriate to have a degree of scrutiny and to ask tough questions about how we're spending that and how we're allocating it. And it's necessary for us to be transparent and open about those answers. But as I say, it's the world we're all living in, where there's wider distrust of nearly all big institutions, whether it's government or the private sector or foundations. But by focusing back in on our goals, our vision, our mission, that world where no mother dies of childbirth, or no one dies of a preventable infectious disease, that's what we hope will speak for itself over time.
Okay, this one's a fun, light one, maybe. Where is the most memorable place that you've watched a tennis match or played?
Oh, well, the watched one I'll do. It's kind of cheating, but it's a great thing. Was actually the just before COVID. It was the last bit of travel. Was watching my boss Bill do a charity match in South Africa. It's actually the tennis match which was attended. It's now in the Guinness Book of Records as the best attended tennis match in history. It was raising money for Roger Federer's foundation. Roger Federer raises money. People may not know his mother was South African, and his charity works on education in Malawi and Zambia and other African countries. And to raise money, there was a charity match which had Federer and Bill Gates playing doubles against Rafa Nadal, and our other famous South African comedian, Trevor Noah. And so I watched that with 65,000 people, and then we watched a exhibition match between Nadal and Federer, which turned out to be the last match they played against each other. And we got to raise millions of dollars for education in Africa, so it was a great occasion.
That's great. What a story. Okay, this is more serious. What is the best way to find partners in improving AI equality and training local models that are not biased?
That is a great question. And actually, we are spending several hours on it tomorrow in my executive leadership team, and also on wider principles of how we engage in AI. Because that's one very important element, is that nature of bias and equity, that AI, both AI on its own won't necessarily do that. And I cited the example of local languages, that you don't have, overwhelmingly AI is trained in English and a little bit Chinese, and then a little bit Spanish and a couple of other languages, but it's not trained in local. So if you want to do things that are going to help support education, or give smallholder farmers advice on how to plant, or healthcare workers training on how to deal with pregnant mothers in rural Africa or Asia, you have to have those local language sets and train on the local language sets. So that's actually an area where we have stepped in as the Gates Foundation. We're the major funders at the moment of trying to expand language sets across Africa and Asia for AI, so that it can be used in that accessible way. But there are a wider set of issues as well around protecting health data. Health and education data is very sensitive data. There are very reasonable concerns in the US and around the world about, well, what happens to that data? Can it be used? And so we're looking to ways and partnerships where we can help protect that, particularly provide the partnerships that will provide protections in low resource countries and settings. And expect to hear, if you invite me back, I hope to give you a progress report in coming months, because I think this is one of the most important issues that we are facing, nationally and globally right now, is mapping out an agenda. What does AI for good look like? The risks are very real in multiple areas, but so are the potential opportunities for AI to be a lever for real equity. But it does require tackling all those issues in a very transparent and very real way.
Good question. Okay, the last question. It's a combination. So in starting this job, probably, what things about the Gates Foundation, projects or otherwise, did you find that people didn't know about the Gates Foundation? And the second part, what do you think the Gates Foundation will be best known for as it wraps up?
Yeah, so on the first one, there's a little bit of our evolution, because we have changed and grown as a foundation, as any institution does. We're 26 years old now. And Bill and Melinda themselves will admit that in our earliest stages, given their background both as engineers and in the computer, that we probably were overly optimistic about the role of technology on its own to drive change. That you could have silver bullets, that we would take it and we would find new treatments, new cures in health, new tools in education, and the system, whatever it is, would take care of making sure that the people who need them most would reach it. And we realize over time that system doesn't exist unless you actually have to work to nurture it and grow it. And that is, I think people still often have a slightly dated image of the Gates Foundation as very, top-down, technically focused on that. And yes, we do still are rooted in our deep technical expertise, but it's constantly now thinking through, back to that first question, who are the local communities and partners? What is the local ecosystem we need? How do you engage and have local champions who are actually going to take and drive and own the work to have their forward? And that's fundamentally part of our work. We now have 5 offices across the continent of Africa with over 200 staff helping drive that work. Our largest office is actually in India. And I think people don't really know and understand to the extent to which we've become a truly global organization, because those offices are all staffed by Africans and Indians. And I'm very proud of that shift, because I think it makes us sort of much better able to sustain our impact. And what we'll be known for, it really goes back to those 3 goals. We hope what really is known is that no mother or child is dying of a preventable disease. That deadly infectious diseases of the kind that have overwhelmingly been the highest cause of death on the planet for most of human history are no longer the primary cause of death for human beings. And that the Gates Foundation will have played some critical role in helping make sure that world has come into existence. And we're doing it in a time frame that really is 19 and a half years from now is less than we've been around. We believe that goal is absolutely achievable. This is not a pie in the sky, big picture, just aspiration. We can map out and see where are the remaining child deaths, where are the remaining maternal deaths, where are the pools of malaria, polio, HIV, wherever it is, where are the opportunities around climate adaptation, and what are the steps that can be taken, what are the partnerships you can pull together. And so really we're less preoccupied by what the foundation will be known, and we're more focused on the causes and issues that we care so much about, because we truly believe that the action we take now, but it does require collective action and voices, including all of you at Rotary, who are truly amazing partners in this, to be able to both believe it's possible and then take action and insist on action from our governments and leaders and others to help make that happen together.
Take my remarks. Yes, it's okay. Right? Give me my
mingle down notes.
We've mingled notes. I should keep going. There we go.
There's
Well-
a Mandela quote for you here. Yeah.
I think I've used him. Thank you, Mark. And as a thanks for your participation today, our club's foundation, the Seattle Rotary Service Foundation, has provided 600 servings of healthy produce to people in need through Harvest Against Hunger in your name. So thank you again for joining us. Now I know that Mark has to cut out very quickly, so he's going to disappear. The rest of his staff will stay. At this time, I would like to invite VP of Club Operations Cynthia Chereau to introduce our new member, Kathy Cloutier. I always want to say it differently. Followed by Barton DeLacy, who will be introducing our new member, Alex Cyrus, our treasurer-elect, to the podium.
Thank you, Jan. It's my pleasure to introduce Kathy Cloutier, Executive Director of the Refugee Women's Alliance, known as REWA. Kathy succeeds our former Rotarian, Manaz Eshetu, and steps into REWA's leadership at a time when its work could not be more vital. REWA is a lifeline to the newest members of our community, supporting thousands of immigrants and refugees each year with wraparound services. These include housing, job training and placement, immigration legal service, early learning, youth education, counseling, and a variety of other supports that promote safety, stability, and economic opportunity for our newest members of the community. The majority of REWA's 200 team members are themselves immigrants, and they provide the services in over 65 languages and dialects. Kathy believes deeply that when people are given opportunity, dignity, and the right support systems, that our community, that they thrive and our community grows together stronger. Kathy comes to us from Rhode Island, where she led Dorcas International, which is the state's largest immigrant services organization. So yes, she traded lobster for salmon and snowstorms for rain. Her path to leadership is compelling. Kathy began as a client herself, navigating some difficult times when she was raising her son. A nonprofit leader recognized her potential, hired and mentored her, and supported her higher education. The result is the kind of full circle story that reminds us exactly why human services work is so important in our community. Kathy is one of 6 siblings, if you can see on the screen. So she brings great patience and great negotiation skills, both highly relevant for anyone running a nonprofit. Her son, Ken, lives in Arizona with his wife, Carissa, and Kathy's granddaughter, Kisara. And I noticed they're all Ks. I don't know whether that was intentional.
I don't know either.
Kathy is a serious, I mean really serious football fan, and her team is the New England Patriots. So guess when she arrived in Seattle? So she survived the Super Bowl by finding the one Seattle sports bar that would tolerate cheering at all the wrong moments. And she reports that she had a great time despite the outcome. So
Seattle fans aren't so bad.
yes. And because simply moving across country and leaving a major nonprofit wasn't enough, Kathy decided to meet people the Seattle way. She joined an improv class. So on the screen, if you can see it, here's Kathy at her first performance, showing great courage, doing whatever improv you were doing at the moment. So
Guided meditation, improv way.
yeah. So Rotarians, please join me in welcoming Kathy, a leader committed to helping immigrants thrive, a proud grandmother, a loyal patriot fan living in Seahawks country, and now an improv artist. Seattle 4 will be richer for her presence, her leadership, and I suspect her sense of humor. Thank you. Oh. Okay. Oops.
Well, it's my pleasure this afternoon to introduce Alexander Cyrus, who may be both one of our newest and youngest members, but he is no less distinguished in service than many in this room. And we'll get to that in a minute. First, Alex joins the elite discerning ranks of ex-Oregonians who share fellowship here at Seattle Rotary. Indeed, Alex is a native of Central Oregon, coming from an almost century-old farming family in Sisters. The youngest of three, Alex. Okay, I'll get to the youngest of three. Alex was no stranger to baling hay and running cattle. At Sisters High School, Alex was an Eagle Scout, captain of the swim team, and began doing something that he took to a whole new level as a Beaver at Oregon State, and that is being a cheer king and supporting the Beavers in football. And some of us have an affinity for that school in Corvallis. Here he is in Husky country, but he'll survive.
That is OSU. U of O.
That's right. Yeah, and we won't go into the Ducks right now. Anyway, at Oregon State, Alex was also a Pike in the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity. But I should mention, what does an Eagle Scout do after attaining that early distinction for service? Well, how about joining the Cloverdale Volunteer Fire Company in Sisters? And then he also worked to landscape their property during the summers. And you have, I think, he's in full regalia there in the lower right. I didn't even recognize him at first, but anyway, that bona fide firefighter. But Alex was, dealt a hand of hard farming and ranching. There was no clear way for him to achieve higher education or go to college. Might have been land rich, but cash poor. So Alex started his own company and to pay his way through college. And by the time he was a senior, he moved to Portland, and he decided to try a different career path, drawing off the work ethic driven into him by his father and grandfather. He continued to work hard and then finally graduated from Oregon State while working at Johnstone Financial Advisors, where he got his start as a wealth advisor, again, right out of college. And some 5 years later, here we have Alex Cyrus, CFP, and Stephen Morse here understands that, a certified financial planner is an important designation. It's hard earned, and very few achieve it at this early age. Today, Alex is a director at Composition Wealth. It's an LA-based financial advisor with a major office here in Seattle. And he effectively acts as a CFO to small businesses and family offices. Imagine mixing that generational wisdom from the farm, leavened with the latest financial insights from the market. So already here at Rotary, Alex has been in our Business Mentors program and importantly is our incoming treasurer. So please welcome Alex Cyrus to Rotary. Got your pin. There we are.
Perfect.
All right, I put it on you, but you're too tall. So I'm going to
You might want to go this way.
Yeah, let's see if I can, okay. Yeah. Yeah, the link. Thanks.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Barton. Welcome to Kathy and welcome to Alex. At the end of our meeting, would the two of you stand at the back so that you can greet our members as they leave and say hello? I also want to thank REB Enterprises and Carl Benke for their meeting support this year, Bloodworks Northwest, and the Westland Morris Group with Baird Private Wealth Management for their meeting support and sponsorship support. Nicole, do you have any announcements for us?
Okay, you have a lot of me today. Sorry, there's a lot of announcements, so hold tight. So Saturday, we need your help. For those that are visitors in the room, we helped found a Seattle Boys and Girls Club. So we have annual and semi-annual cleanups and help out. So we need more people from 9 to 12 this Saturday. The weather will be perfect, I was told. So Jared Gross has an RSVP, so if you could sign up, that'd be great. Sunday, April 26th, which is this Sunday, there is an All Out for Autism 5K. Pets are welcome if you would rather bring your pet. I'm going to bring my kids. My dog is too old. So it's with the Bellevue Morning Club, and they're great partners. So if you want to come, please do. And then we move to Wednesday, April 29th. We have a Zoom-only meeting with our own retired Rear Admiral Bill Center. So he'll be talking about global citizenship. Mark Wright back there will be interviewing, and we always love that. He has a 45-year military career. A center commanded the Pacific Northwest Naval Fleet. He was awarded the 2020 UW Distinguished Veteran Award, and he also sings. So I don't think he'll be doing that, but maybe. So Wednesday, May 6th, we have a lunch meeting at the WAC with Hip Hop is Green founder Keith Tucker. So we'll be back in our normal spot, and it'll be start of the month on environment, which sounds like a hot topic for a lot of you. Hip Hop is Green founder Keith Tucker, and we'll have some UW Business Mentor guests that day, so please greet them. Wednesday, May 13th, we have an evening event. This will be our final event for the year, so please come. It'll be a special one with at Cascade PBS from 5 to 7. You'll meet two local celebrities, Rachel Bell of The Nosh and Paris Jackson of Newsfeed. So we'll have lots of members there from District 5030 as well as us if we show up. And there'll be free food and drinks, so please come. Tuesday, May 19th, we have Rotary Day at UW. So this is at the university from 4 to 6 p.m. And I know Barton's always helped create that. So that's a really special one. And you can have a UW meal, which it says here, a great UW catered meal. So if that entices you, please come. There's RSVP details on the club website. We need you there for that. Wednesday, May 20th, we have a lunch meeting at the WAC with WSU for the Cougs in the room, Ruckelshaus Center for Director Julia Carboni. We are solving at the local level with her about the center's work on impartial resource for state and local solutions, for private and public spheres and their mission to help solve problems through collaborative action. Thursday, May 24th, May 21st, for those that have donated over $1,000, we have a special event from 5 to 8 p.m. For Pinkham and Steele SRSF major donors. So if you know who you are, please come, and that's a motivation for next year. Wednesday, May 27th, we have a Zoom-only meeting, the last of the year, with retired philanthropy director Dave Spicer. And we also have an evening event with Fedva, wherever she is. Fedva, she's our famous wrangler of ethnic dinners. And that will be maybe our last one of this year under President Jan. And because I'm up here and there's rumors going around, I did get engaged in Maui. Thank you. So thank you. All right, there you go.
Can we get one more shout out for Nicole? She just got back from Maui yesterday. As we wrap up today, I keep coming back to where this story really begins for me. My first awareness of the Gates family through Mary Gates, mentioned by Mark earlier. Many of you know she was a civic force here in Seattle, and that included being one of the founders of Leadership Tomorrow. So what stands out most is not just what she built, but what she set in motion. Her influence on her son, Bill Jr., helped, or Trey, some of you know him as, helped plant in him the seeds of a broader sense of responsibility, that success in this corner of the world comes with an obligation to look well beyond it. From that grew something extraordinary, the Gates Foundation, based right here in Seattle and working globally on some of the most urgent challenges of our time. That idea, looking beyond ourselves, is truly what defines us as Rotarians. We are, in our own way, global citizens rooted in local communities. Whether it's clean water, youth programs, eradicating polio, we act locally and globally. It's part of what makes Rotary in Seattle feel connected, not to just this region, but to the world. If there's a takeaway from me, it's this: global citizenship does not require a boarding pass, just a willingness to care beyond your own immediate horizon. And in Seattle, we've been practicing that for a long time. Sometimes we just call it being good neighbors who can't help paying attention to the world beyond our own block. As Bill Gates said, and I quote, "I believe that if you show people the problems and you show them the solutions, they will be moved to act." That's the exact definition of a Rotarian. Thank you all for joining us today. Next week, I hope to see you on Zoom when we will hear from Admiral Bill Center being interviewed by Mark Wright on what it means to be a global citizen. Kathy and Alex, please remember to stand at the back and greet people, and we are adjourned.